The Triple Alliance War, a brutal conflict that ravaged South America from 1864 to 1870, stands as a chilling testament to the devastating consequences of unchecked ambition and regional rivalries. Over 50,000 lives were lost on the blood-soaked battlefields, forever etching this war into the annals of history as the continent's deadliest. The war's repercussions were profound, redrawing national boundaries and leaving an enduring legacy of political instability and social upheaval. At the heart of this devastating conflict lay the ambitious designs of Francisco Solano López, the Paraguayan president who yearned to secure his nation's place on the continental stage. López, inheriting a nation forged in the fires of independence movements, harbored dreams of expanding Paraguay's borders and establishing it as a regional power. However, these ambitions brought him into direct conflict with his neighbors, particularly Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay, who viewed his expansionist aspirations with growing suspicion and alarm. The intricate web of alliances and rivalries that entangled South America in the mid-19th century was a complex and volatile mix of political ambitions, territorial disputes, and national pride. These tensions set the stage for the eruption of war as nations maneuvered for power and influence. Uruguay, embroiled in its own internal power struggles, became the tinderbox that ignited the larger conflagration. The country was divided between the Blancos and the Colorados, two factions vying for control. When civil war erupted in Uruguay between its two main political factions, the conflict quickly escalated beyond its borders. Paraguay, under the leadership of President Francisco Solano López, chose to intervene, throwing its support behind the faction aligned with his interests. López saw an opportunity to expand his influence and secure Paraguay's position in the region. This intervention would prove to be a fateful miscalculation, as it not only failed to achieve its objectives, but also drew Paraguay into a much larger and more devastating conflict. The powerful Brazilian Empire, with its own interests in the region, was drawn into the fray on the side of its Uruguayan allies. Brazil's involvement escalated the conflict further, leading to a full-scale war that would engulf much of South America. Brazil's entry into the conflict in 1864 marked a decisive turning point, escalating what had been a localized conflict into a full-blown international war. Argentina, wary of Paraguay's growing assertiveness and enticed by the prospect of territorial gains, joined Brazil and Uruguay in forming the Triple Alliance. This formidable coalition, united in its opposition to Paraguay's ambitions, sought to crush López's regime and curtail his nation's burgeoning power. The stage was now set for a prolonged and bloody conflict that would engulf the southern cone in flames. Section 5. Paraguayan Valor, Early Defenses and Daring Raids. Despite facing a numerically superior and better equipped enemy, the Paraguayan people, under López's unwavering leadership, mounted a spirited defense of their homeland. Paraguayan forces, imbued with a fierce sense of patriotism and loyalty to their leader, fought with tenacity and determination in the early stages of the war. Their initial successes, including daring raids into Brazilian and Argentine territory, showcased their military prowess and surprised their adversaries, who had underestimated the resolve of the small South American nation. Section 6. The tide begins to turn. The alliance gains ground. This pivotal moment marked a significant shift in the conflict, as the combined forces of the Triple Alliance began to make substantial progress against their formidable adversary. However, the tide of war began to turn as the combined might of the Triple Alliance slowly but inexorably wore down the Paraguayan defenses. The relentless pressure applied by the Allied forces started to show results, with each battle pushing the Paraguayan troops further back. The superior resources and manpower of Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay, coupled with their control of the seas, allowed them to impose a crippling blockade on Paraguay, cutting off vital supply lines and isolating the landlocked nation. This naval blockade was a strategic masterstroke, effectively strangling the Paraguayan economy and military capabilities. As the war dragged on, the relentless advance of the Triple Alliance forces continued. The soldiers, despite facing harsh conditions and difficult terrain, remained resolute and determined to achieve victory. The Paraguayan people faced mounting hardships, enduring the brunt of the conflict. The civilian population suffered immensely, with many families displaced and struggling to survive amidst the chaos. Their valiant resistance hampered by shortages of food, medicine, and military supplies. The lack of essential resources took a heavy toll on the Paraguayan soldiers, who fought bravely despite the dire circumstances. The makeshift medical tents were overwhelmed with the wounded, and the rationing of food became a daily struggle for survival. Section 7, Humaitá, the fortress that cracked. The Battle of Humaitá, a protracted and bloody siege that raged for over a year, proved to be a pivotal turning point in the war. This battle was not just a clash of armies, but a test of endurance, strategy, and sheer willpower. The defenders of Humaitá, despite being outnumbered and outgunned, held their ground with remarkable tenacity. Humaitá, a formidable fortress strategically located on the Paraguay River, served as the linchpin of Paraguay's defensive line. Its position allowed it to control river traffic and act as a barrier against advancing forces. The fortress was heavily fortified with thick walls, numerous cannons, and a garrison of determined soldiers ready to defend it at all costs. Its capture by the Triple Alliance in 1868 dealt a devastating blow to Paraguay's hopes of repelling the invasion, opening the gateway to the heartland of the beleaguered nation. The fall of Humaitá was not just a military defeat, but a psychological one as well, shattering the morale of the Paraguayan forces and civilians alike. The fall of Humaitá marked a decisive shift in the balance of power, paving the way for the eventual Allied victory. This victory was celebrated not only on the battlefield, but also in the capitals of the Allied nations, where it was seen as a significant step towards ending the long and brutal conflict. The capture of Humaitá demonstrated the effectiveness of coordinated military strategy and the importance of key strongholds in determining the outcome of wars. Section 8. Paraguayan resilience, fighting against the odds. Even as the tide of war turned decisively against them, the Paraguayan people, displaying remarkable resilience and unwavering loyalty to their leader, continued to resist the invading forces. Facing overwhelming odds, they fought with a tenacity that belied their dwindling numbers and diminishing resources. However, their valiant efforts were ultimately in vain, as the relentless advance of the Triple Alliance gradually ground down the last vestiges of organized resistance. The war had exacted a horrific toll on Paraguay, leaving its once proud nation in ruins. Section 9. The tragedy of war, Paraguay's decimation. The Triple Alliance War ended in 1870 with the complete defeat and occupation of Paraguay. The war's human cost was catastrophic. Paraguay, once a vibrant and relatively prosperous nation, lay in ruins, its economy shattered, its infrastructure decimated, and its population decimated. Conservative estimates suggest that over half of the Paraguayan population perished during the conflict, victims of relentless warfare, disease, and starvation. The war left an indelible scar on the nation's psyche, a haunting reminder of the horrors of conflict. Section 10. A legacy of loss, the scars of war. The Triple Alliance War had a profound and lasting impact on the geopolitical landscape of South America. Paraguay, once a rising power in the region, was reduced to a shadow of its former self, stripped of vast swaths of territory and burdened by crippling war reparations. The victors, particularly Brazil and Argentina, emerged from the conflict with enhanced regional stature. Their territorial ambitions satiated, but their relations forever marked by the shared experience of a brutal and costly war. Section 11. Remember and reflect. Lessons from the past. The Triple Alliance War stands as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked ambition, regional rivalries, and the human cost of conflict. It is a conflict worth remembering, not to glorify war, but to learn from the mistakes of the past and strive for a future where dialogue, diplomacy, and mutual understanding prevail over violence and destruction. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking content on history, current affairs, and the human condition.